In 1971, the U.S. parked an aircraft carrier in the Bay of Bengal. India's Navy backed down. That moment hasn't been forgotten in New Delhi, not once in 50 years. The Indian Ocean is not the world's largest ocean. It's not the deepest, but right now, it may be the most important. 80% of the world's seaborne oil passes through it. The supply chains feeding Europe, China, India, and East Africa all converge here. And for the first time in 70 years, 3 nuclear-armed nations are positioning carrier fleets in the same water. The U.S. got here first. China arrived uninvited. India just made its position official. What happens next has no modern precedent. Washington's dominance of the Indian Ocean was never loudly announced. It was quietly constructed, base by base, decade by decade. The centerpiece is Diego Garcia, a British territory leased to the U.S. since 1966, sitting almost perfectly in the center of the Indian Ocean. From Diego Garcia, American carriers can reach the Persian Gulf in 48 hours, the Strait of Malacca, the choke point connecting the Indian Ocean to the Pacific, in under 4 days. For most of the post-Cold War era, Washington treated the Indian Ocean as a solved problem. The Fifth Fleet controlled the Gulf. Diego Garcia anchored the center. No rival navy was strong enough to challenge either. That assumption held until roughly 2015. Then 2 things happened simultaneously, and the Pentagon has been quietly recalibrating ever since. India and China read the Indian Ocean through entirely different eyes, and neither reading matches Washington's. For Beijing, the Indian Ocean is an economic lifeline with a vulnerability problem. Approximately 80% of China's oil imports transit through it. If the U.S. ever chose to blockade those routes, a scenario Chinese strategists call the Malacca Dilemma, China's economy would begin shutting down within weeks. China's response has been methodical. Naval base in Djibouti, port investments in Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Myanmar, Bangladesh, and now 3 carrier programs running in parallel. For New Delhi, this is not abstract. Every Chinese port investment on the Indian Ocean rim is a potential naval asset, one crisis away from activation. India's response to China's string of pearls strategy was INS Vikrant, not bought, not leased, built, designed in India, constructed in Kochi, commissioned in 2022. The message was precise. India is not a customer of someone else's security. It intends to be a provider of its own. An aircraft carrier's weapon is not the ship. It's the 500-kilometer radius of air power the ship carries with it. Every American carrier travels with a strike group, typically 1 guided missile cruiser, 2 destroyers, an attack submarine, and a supply ship. Together, this formation can project air power over a land area larger than France, from international waters, without requiring a single foreign airbase. That capability is what makes carriers the primary instrument of coercive diplomacy. Not firepower, presence. Here is the geometry problem nobody has cleanly solved. The U.S. operates 11 carriers globally. At any given moment, roughly 2 to 3 are within range of the Indian Ocean. China currently operates 3 carriers. The newest, Fujian, is its first with electromagnetic catapults, matching U.S. capability for the first time. India operates 2 INS Vikrant, a refurbished Russian vessel, and INS Vikrant, its first domestic build. A third is under planning. In the northern Indian Ocean right now, these 3 fleets already overlap in operational range. In peacetime, that overlap produces friction. In a crisis, it produces a problem with no established rules. A carrier never travels alone. Its strike group is specifically designed around one mission: keeping the carrier alive. The attack submarine screens for enemy submarines, the carrier's most serious threat. The destroyers carry anti-aircraft and anti-missile systems. The cruiser manages the strike group's overall air defense picture. Every layer exists because of one brutal arithmetic. A single American carrier holds $13 billion in hardware and over 6,000 lives. Losing one would be the largest single military loss since World War II. The U.S. lost approximately 4,500 personnel in the entire Iraq War. A single carrier strike group carries more people than that. This is why, in 2005 and again in 2015, two incidents deeply unsettled the U.S. Navy. A Swedish submarine and a French submarine, both allies independently reached torpedo range of American carriers during war games before being detected. The carrier is not invincible. It is influential. These are not the same thing. India's carrier strategy is not a copy of America's. It is built around one specific geographic asset most people cannot find on a map. The Andaman and Nicobar Islands, an Indian archipelago stretching 800 kilometers down the eastern edge of the Bay of Bengal, site directly across the northern approach to the Strait of Malacca. Every Chinese ship moving between the Indian Ocean and the Pacific passes within operational range of these islands. INS Vikrant's primary peacetime mission is not power projection in the American sense. It is presence in this corridor, the ability to complicate Chinese naval planning without firing a shot. India calls this strategy sea control rather than sea denial. The distinction matters. Sea denial says, you cannot pass. Sea control says, you may pass, but only if we allow it. China's naval strategy in the Indian Ocean doesn't rely primarily on carriers, not yet. It relies on ports. Since 2005, Chinese state investment has built or financed major port facilities at Gwadar in Pakistan, Hambantota in Sri Lanka, Chittagong in Bangladesh, and Kyaukphyu in Myanmar. Each port is framed publicly as commercial infrastructure. Each port is capable with modifications of servicing Chinese naval vessels. Indian strategists call this the string of pearls, a necklace of potential military assets encircling India's coastline. China disputes this framing entirely. Beijing calls it the Belt and Road Initiative economic development, not encirclement. Both descriptions are simultaneously accurate. That ambiguity is the strategy. Here is what all three navies agree on, even if none would say it publicly. The Indian Ocean's balance of power is being renegotiated right now. The carriers are the negotiating instruments. The U.S. still holds the dominant position. More carriers, more bases, more allied port access than any rival. But dominance and control are different things. The U.S. dominated the Indian Ocean when it was the only serious naval power here. That condition no longer exists. China's presence is expanding methodically, expensively, patiently. India's presence is hardening, driven less by ambition than by the specific anxiety of watching that Chinese expansion from close range. What neither India nor China has yet demonstrated is the ability to operate a carrier strike group in a contested environment against a peer adversary. The U.S. has 70 years of that institutional knowledge. The gap is real, and both rivals know it. But institutional knowledge doesn't last forever, and both rivals are learning fast. There is one island in the center of the Indian Ocean that all three of these powers watch more carefully than any other. It has no permanent civilian population. Most people cannot name it. And right now, its future is being decided in a courtroom, not a war room. Next week, the island that America built its entire Indian Ocean strategy around, and why it may be about to change hands. Subscribe so you don't miss it.